Hi, and welcome back to my channel. Today, I want to get into my second year of marriage and some of the trauma that went on during that year. But first, there's a few things that I remembered happening in the first year that we were together that I left out of my other video. So I want to get into that a little bit first. So, when I met my husband's family, it was New Year's Eve. And when I went over there, I was supposed to meet his mother. And I remember when I got there, he told me that she had already been drinking too much and was in the bathroom throwing up and passed out on the floor in there. Her girlfriend was there, who happened to be someone that my husband went to high school with. And this was his mother's girlfriend. So I never met his mother that night. So let's skip ahead to the first time that my husband met my children. They had gotten some gift cards from their other family members. So I met him at Walmart with my kids to let him meet them, and they were going to spend the money that they had on their gift cards. So we did that, and then we went back to his mother's house, and there was no one there. So we were just hanging out, watching movies, letting him get to know my kids a little bit. Well, his little brother shows up and tells my husband he needed to talk to him outside. So he went outside to talk to his brother, and a few minutes later he comes back in, and he has a cut between his eyes on his nose. And I asked him what had happened, and he told me that his brother was high on meth and had asked him if he had been talking about his girlfriend, saying bad stuff about her, and the brother had headbutted him and cut his face and busted his nose. So there was another incident, and this kind of shows how selfish my husband is. Okay, for Thanksgiving, his mom, we were staying with his mom, had told him that she did not want to make Thanksgiving dinner. She wanted us to go to my family's and spend Thanksgiving with my family because she wanted to be alone. Her girlfriend that she had been with had passed away. I'm sure she was depressed. She had been with this lady since my husband was a little kid, and she had gotten killed in a car accident. So my take on it is that she was depressed and just did not feel like messing with Thanksgiving. But my husband insisted. And come Thanksgiving Day, his mom still did not want to make Thanksgiving dinner. But my husband insisted that she make it. So she finally broke down and cooked Thanksgiving dinner, and it was really late that night when we had Thanksgiving. But had my husband not been so selfish, we could have went to my family's and had a real Thanksgiving with family members and had a good time, instead of me and my kids pretty much feeling like a burden to this lady because she did not want to do this, but he insisted that she did. Another thing I remember is after the hurricane hit, and we had been living in this trailer that was owned by one of his friends. And I remember him having a conversation with his friend on the phone about the condition of the place we had been staying. And the friend was angry and said, he was mad because of all the beer cans that were out in the yard and stuff, because behind our house there was huge lawn bags, black lawn bags full of beer cans. And I guess the hurricane had blown them over, and the man's yard was covered with beer cans, and he was upset about it and told my husband that it looked like a drunk lived there. And a drunk did live there. And he would just throw his cans out in the yard and then expect me to make my children go out there and pick up all of his beer cans that he just threw everywhere, which he shouldn't have done. And I shouldn't have made my kids pick them up. Okay, so let's get into the first year. Well, the second year. The first year that we lived in our own place after staying with his mom. She really didn't want us staying with her to start with. So somebody that my husband's brother knew was selling this house, and he only wanted a small amount for it and for the back taxes to be paid. So she bought the house. She took out a fraudulent loan on her own home, saying that she was going to make repairs to it or build a new porch. I can't remember exactly what, but a friend of hers came out and made her up a fraudulent estimate, which she used to get a loan from the bank to buy our house. When we came to look at the house, it was in pretty bad shape. But the whole point is, she didn't want us there. She committed fraud to get a loan to pay for our house. And we moved into this house. It needed a lot of work done to it. So when we first moved here, we got along pretty good. You know, we were happy to have our own place and whatnot. And about 3 months after we moved into this house, I found out that I was pregnant with my first child with him. And when I found out that I was pregnant, I thought that he would be so happy, because all I'd heard for over a year was how much he wanted a baby of his own. So when I found out I was pregnant, I was excited. I went to the store and bought a card and gave it to him. So whenever he opened it, he would be surprised. But that wasn't the case. I gave him the card one morning before he left for work, and I didn't hear anything back from him. So my pregnancy was high risk because in 2005 I'd had a daughter that was stillborn. So my pregnancy was high risk. I was supposed to not have much stress. You know, towards the end of the pregnancy, I was supposed to be on bed rest and things like that. I was having to travel over an hour away twice a week for fetal monitoring to make sure the baby's heartbeat was good and all that. I had frequent ultrasounds done because my daughter in 2005 was breech, and she had gotten tangled up in the cord and it cut off her oxygen. So that's what caused her to be stillborn. So I was traveling twice a week to have this fetal monitoring done. But even before that, you know, my husband and I had talked about getting married, and, you know, we were supposed to have gotten married in May of 2009. And about a month before we were supposed to get married, we were sitting outside late at night. My husband had been drinking all day, and I told him that he didn't really seem interested in getting married. And he basically told me that he didn't want to get married. So I told him that, if we weren't married before the baby was born, that I was going to have to move out because I was having to get state benefits to make, to be able to go to the doctor and stuff because he refused to put us on his insurance. And whenever I told him this, he got furious because I didn't want to continue to be on state benefits while living with somebody and saying that I didn't have a relationship with this person when I did. And I was going to move out. And he started screaming at me. At this point, I was 6 months pregnant. He started screaming at me. He got up and was throwing lawn chairs. So I went in the house. I got my kids, and I told them, we're leaving. Go get in the van. Well, we got in the van, and I realized that I didn't have my keys. So I was trapped in the van with my 3 kids while he was circling the van like a shark, beating in the windows with a metal pipe, pouring beer all over the van. I'm calling 911 for help because we were trapped. I couldn't get out. I couldn't leave. So I'm calling 911, trying to get help. My kids are screaming hysterically. He's screaming at me to give him the last cigarette in the box while he's pouring beer all over the van and beating on the windows with a metal pipe. So the police finally come, and he's arrested for domestic assault. And I should have sent him to jail for it. I mean, they took him that night, but I should have went through with pressing charges. But, I was scared. I was pregnant. I didn't know what would happen if I pressed charges. I was afraid I wouldn't have a place to go with my 3 kids. I was scared. I didn't know what to do. So he went to jail, and a few days later, I went and dropped the charges that were against him. Okay, fast forward to me still having to go for monitoring and stuff. He didn't want to buy furniture for the baby. Anything that had to do with the baby, he really wasn't interested in. No, I had to ride the ferry across the bay every day. Every time I went to the doctor for monitoring, I would try to call him while I was on the ferry, and he would ignore my calls or not call me back, or, he never asked. He never would call or even ask if the baby was okay. So the day I went into labor, I had been in labor for a few hours. It was on a Sunday, and I got up, I got my kids ready for church. I took them to my mom's and dropped them off so she could take them to church. At this point, I still had not told anybody I was in labor. When I came back from dropping off my kids, I've told him that I was in labor. We needed to go to the hospital, that my contractions weren't 5 minutes apart. And I didn't feel like there was really a need to be in any hurry to get there because all of my monitoring and all that had gone good. The baby was in position, things were like they were supposed to be. So we were on our way to the hospital, rode the ferry, got off the ferry, and he wasn't ready to go to the hospital. We had to go to the store, let him go in and buy snacks. The whole time I'm having contractions. We had to ride around so he could drink. So he was pretty buzzed by the time we got to the hospital. Well, we get to the hospital and they do an ultrasound to make sure the baby's still in position and everything because of my high-risk pregnancy. And the baby has turned. He's breech now, and he has 1 foot in the birth canal. And he basically could have died. Had my water broke, it would have compressed the cord, and he would have died. All of this happened while we were riding around so my husband could drink. So I was rushed in for an emergency C-section. I had the baby. He had fluid in his lungs from, that's common when you have a C-section because the baby isn't compressed going through the birth canal, and that's what squeezes the fluid out of the lungs. And he was healthy other than that. And when we came home, I got no help taking care of him other than my mom and my older kids because they were excited for the new baby. But even during my pregnancy, I was supposed to be taking it easy, getting as much rest as possible and all that because my pregnancy was high risk to start with. He didn't help at all. I know he went to work, but when he came home, he didn't help. He didn't help with laundry. He didn't help with carrying baskets of dirty clothes up and down the stairs because we live in a pier house. So all the laundry and everything had to be carried down the stairs to be washed and then back up the stairs to be finished, folded, and put away. All of that was left up to me. Like, it didn't even matter if I lost the baby or not. But when the baby came home, on the way home, we had to stop before we could get on the ferry so he could smoke. It was storming. We had to find somewhere we could pull in and park because I didn't want him smoking in the truck with the baby. He drank all the way home, even though I asked him not to. By the time we got home with the baby, he was pretty buzzed, which, it's pretty irresponsible. I asked him not to smoke in the house around the baby. He didn't care. He still smoked in the house, regardless of if it was harmful to the baby or not. Plus the baby had to be on oxygen because of the fluid in his lungs. So I basically got no help with the baby from him. I mean, he would hold the baby and feed the baby sometime, but as far as getting up in the night or, helping out, cooking dinner and things like that, he didn't help. I had a C-section and was trying to heal. He wouldn't go to the grocery store for me or anything. Which, if somebody really cares about you and knows that you're in pain and, that could have busted open. That anything could have happened. And if somebody really cares about you, they'll help you out when you've gone through something like that. And he wouldn't. So 2 weeks after my son was born, we got married. Maybe 4 weeks. Wasn't long. He was still a newborn. We had a small ceremony. I wanted to get married in a church and be married by a preacher, not at the courthouse. So we had a small get together. His mom didn't even come. My parents were there. We were married by the preacher at my grandmother's church. He drank all the way there. He worked that day. He drank all the way there. When we got to the church, his brother is sitting on the steps of the church drinking a beer. We had the ceremony. We had no reception. We went to my mom's house afterwards, talked for a little while, came home, and went to sleep. There was nothing special about it. Nothing special about it. I shouldn't have married him. I should have kept my word and moved out because we were not married before the baby was born. And that's mostly because of him. A little bit of it had to do with me because by that time I was big and pregnant, and I shouldn't have gone through with it, but I did. So that was the details of my pregnancy and, him being arrested for domestic assault while I was pregnant. Scared, the trauma he caused my kids while I was pregnant, being trapped in the van while he's beating on it with a metal pipe. It's all abuse. It's all abuse. Abuse to me, abuse to the kids. It traumatized the kids. I mean, I feel horrible for the things that my kids have endured. Guilty, it's all, I should have left. I don't know why I didn't at that point, other than being afraid that I couldn't take care of myself and the 3 kids that I already had. I would have had to move away from here, change their schools, and be totally on my own. And I was scared to death that I couldn't do it. When I would say something to him about not helping me after I had my C-section, he would always say he was too tired. And that's a legitimate excuse. But the reasons that he abused me were not legitimate. I mean, he could have helped after I had my C-section if he would have really wanted to. I know he was tired after work, but basically that wasn't it, because other men go home and take care of their baby. Other men go home and help their wife after they have a baby. Other men cook. Other men go to the grocery store for their wife after they have a baby. It's just all excuses, and it's emotional abuse. Basically, that's what it is. It's all seeing how much they can not do and get away with it. Seeing how far they can push you and show you that they don't care and get away with it, and you'll still stay. And the longer that you put up with it, the more they'll try to get away with. And it's really sad because all of this had negative effects on my kids. And it showed them basically that it's okay to be treated like crap. And it's not. Another thing that he would do while I was in the hospital was go sit out in the parking garage and drink and leave me alone in the hospital. I couldn't even get him to go get me something to eat and bring it to me because he was so worried about sitting out in the parking garage drinking. That's not showing me that he loves me. That's being selfish. If somebody loves you, they take care of you when you need it. They're there for you when you need them. Especially after you let them know that you need them. You tell them what's going on with you and what you need them to do. They make those changes to make things better. But a narcissistic person does not do that. They don't care if you need them. What they want to do and them being happy is all that matters. At that point, the baby didn't matter. I didn't matter. My kids didn't matter. The only thing he was focused on was himself and drinking. And that's not right. If somebody loves you, they show you that they love you. And they treat you with kindness and compassion. They care if you're in pain. They care if the baby's life is being put at risk. And they make sure that you're taken care of. Not just with money, but your physical person. And if somebody shows you that they don't care, you should leave because it's only going to get worse. And it did. He continued to show me that he didn't care. He continued to show the kids that he didn't care. And no one should have to beg you to love them. No one should have to beg somebody to love them. No one should have to repeatedly tell somebody that what they're doing is wrong. When you become a parent, your child comes first. Period. And granted, yes, things went on in front of my kids that never, ever should have happened. A lot of it, I didn't even know that they saw. I didn't realize at the time how it was affecting them. But now that my kids are older, they tell me what they saw and how it made them feel and how scared they were and how it was to live not knowing from day to day what was going to happen. And it's terrible to have to live with that as a parent, knowing that the choices that you make have damaged your children. It's terrible. You can see the problems that they're having, and you know that it came from the choices that you've made. And it's a terrible thing to have to live with. To watch your kids suffer and be in pain as adults because of the choices that you made when they were little. It's not their fault. And it's my fault for putting up with the things that I put up with. But being in an abusive relationship, that's what happens because you feel trapped. I felt trapped. I didn't know what to do or where to go or how to get help. And it's a terrible feeling to know that your choices have damaged your children. I'm going to end this video. Thank you for listening. Thank you for showing your support for me and other women who have been in similar situations that I have. Please like and subscribe to my channel. If this is helping you to recognize domestic violence in your own relationship or in somebody you know, I appreciate all your support.